Hello and welcome, students. We are excited to have you here. One quick note for Mr. Gonzalez Angel. One of our panelists, Josh Grappera, is on, but on as an attendee. So I'm not sure if you're able to switch him to a panelist. If you can look at that. But in the meantime, welcome, students. My name is Jeremy Raff. I'm the coordinator of College and Career Services, and I'm really excited to welcome some of our panelists who are representing Pennsylvania College of Art and Design, which is an awesome art college just right here in the center of the city, doing really awesome things. So, Lancaster is really blessed by having so many different cool colleges and partners. And in a typical year, you hopefully would have been able to, see inside the building and get a tour and do some activities. But this is the next best thing, bringing some real artists to you into your classroom. So I am excited to be joined by a couple artists here. So we have Josh Grappera, who's joining us, and it looks like he was added as a panelist, so welcome. We've also got Jen Kraft, who's joining us as well, and Leah Limperwalt as well. So without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to our panelists. If you have any questions as we go, there's a Q&A. You can ask those questions here. So just put your questions in there, and then I will make sure and kind of add those, ask our panelists as we go. But without further ado, I'm going to pass it off to Josh, who's going to talk a little bit about his artwork and his experience. Welcome, Josh.
Hi, thanks for having me. Can you all hear me okay? I know I just heard that I saw in the chat that the audio is a little glitchy. So if someone could maybe pop in the chat. Okay, great, awesome. So yeah, my name is Josh Galbetta. I'm an artist as well as kind of an entrepreneur, I guess. And I specialize in a couple different things. I studied painting. I went to Millersville University and got my degree in fine art with a concentration in painting. But I also do a lot of screen printing, and as you can see here in the photo, I do like community-based art. Like I love to do screen printing workshops or public workshops. And then on the left, you can actually see an image of one of my screen prints. I'm a freelancer. I actually live in Philadelphia right now, so I do a lot of different types of work, and I can run through them as they kind of pop up on the slides. So I do graphic design for commissions. So people will reach out to me and ask like, hey, we'd love a logo, which is what you see here with the Sanctuary Advocate Coalition. That was a group of folks who were bringing in a migrant family into a church in Philadelphia and keeping space for them as sanctuary, right? So they asked if I could design a logo for them, and that's what you see on the left. On the right is a community art project that myself and my collaborator Selena Almansar are doing in Southeast Lancaster called the Seed Project, and that's a 5-year community art project. So we do a bunch of workshops. We have 2 murals going up in Southeast Lancaster in the next month, as well as a bunch of other activities. And I'm just gonna pop into the chat here. So where do I get my inspiration for my art? I actually get a lot of inspiration from video games and movies, and I have a totally separate artwork that's not based in like community activism or anything. I do a lot of painting and drawing, and I think that's the only one that might only question I might refer to me. Was it hard drawing as a kid, or did you draw as a kid? I drew a lot as a kid. I don't know if y'all watch anime, but I watched a lot of anime. I watched a lot of cartoons, and then I started drawing everywhere. I took a sketchbook with me and I drew like outside at the park, I drew at the mall, I drew at the restaurant, I drew at school. And I just got better and better as I went. So thanks, Poppy. Appreciate that. So I'm a fan of the same thing you're doing, but you have an imagination like when it comes to painting and drawing. Yeah, Jay, I think that's really interesting. Like I make my own world. I have this, I don't know if there's a slide about it per se, but I can drop a link to my website in the chat. But I have this whole world called Blockadia, and it's a mythos, similar to like a Wakanda or something that you might see in Marvel. And I'm always digging through books and history and video games and cartoons and movies to kind of get inspiration for what happens next. Eliana, I'm gonna age myself here. I'm 31. So I've been drawing probably, I think the earliest drawing I have is from when I was 6. So that's like 25 years. When is the first time you started to draw in your current style? I think maybe like 7 years ago. It took me a long time. I kept drawing like everybody else. My brother likes to draw. I drew like my brother. Didn't fit. My dad likes to draw. I drew like him. That didn't work. My friends draw. I drew like them. And then it took me a while. And then I finally found a style that felt good for me and held on to it. How did I get into art? I think I just really liked it as a kid. And I was really fortunate to have parents that saw that. And they pushed me to go do all kinds of things. Like they would send me to different classes. Like I think I went to a PCAD class in high school. I had an art teacher in high school that really pushed me, made sure that I had a sketchbook. And then I just drew everywhere, right? Can you show us some of your artwork? Would it be okay if I shared my screen for the panelists?
Sure. Here, let me stop my share. See if you're able to do that. And then we'll do this, and then we're going to pass it off
Sounds great.
to Leah next. Yep.
So I'll just share some of my some of this, like this is the world map for this world that I created called Blockadia. It's a big painting, right? And I'm just going to run through really quick and show you some of the details of it. So it's a lot of it's all on paper, pencil, colored pencil, acrylic, paint, watercolor, very colorful, lots of patterns. And that's my work. So I'm going to stop sharing. I'll put my website in the chat so y'all can check it out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Josh. We are going to pass it off to Leah next. The other thing too, you can continue to ask questions of all our panelists in the Q&A because we can all see those, so we can answer those as we go. So I'm going to introduce our next presenter, which is Leah Limperwalt. Welcome, Leah.
Hello, thank you. And thank you, Josh. It's nice to see your work, and it's always nice to get to meet, even virtually, other artists that I haven't met yet. So I'm Leah. I am actually in York, PA. Not for much longer. I'm going to be moving to Lancaster soon, this weekend actually. But you see my work here. This is some of my landscape work, some of my drawing work, and then some of like a little hint into the surreal work that I've done. And I think that surreal work tends to be majority of my focus, in addition to my observational landscape work. And I graduated from Pennsylvania College of Art and Design in 2018. And it took me a while to decide to go to school for art because it's not a practical thing that you would think would be smart. But I think that that's actually bad information that we get as artists. So, and I'll tell you, it's actually been one of the best decisions that I've ever made. And I do make money and I do have work and, you know, these sorts of things. Luckily for me, I enjoy teaching very much. So I get to teach and I also get to make work and have shows. And I have a solo exhibition at York College of Pennsylvania currently at their downtown location at Market View Arts. The show is called The Shadow, the Mystic, and the Mushroom, and it's the culmination of about 2 years worth of work that I received grants for. And these grants that I received, it's because I filled out the application for the grant. I was searching for funding so that I could make the work that I wanted to make without the pressure of having to sell, you know, that kind of work around here where it maybe doesn't really have much of a market because it is a little more different. Different in the sense of like some of the surreal. So I think that if you have a real passion and a real interest in the arts, it's easier for you to find ways to make it happen. And I think it's all about working hard and diligently, just like it is with any job that you have. So this is, yes, here's some of my more surreal work, some of the work that people are a little like, why did you paint yourself like that? You know, I get that a lot, but I think that when you look back in art history, no one's self-portrait was ever them smiling and like, you know, it's a study of light, it's a study of self, right? So it's not about, you know, a smiling like you would be in, say, a selfie or something like that. This is a more of an in-depth investigation into the self. So I do a lot of self-portraiture. I do a lot of from direct observation, from imagination, and all this kind of mashed up together so I can create these kind of worlds that really just exist in my mind. And, you know, they're coming from my past, my present, and, you know, hints of what maybe the future could hold. But you know, these things are the things that really interest me the most, and they're the things that drive my research. Josh was talking about how, you know, you're constantly looking at other art and also reading lots of books and articles and, you know, information. You're trying to inform your practice. So I think that it's a lifelong journey in making and learning. And I think that that's really a lot of fun because as you get older, you start to learn the ways that you learn best and the ways that you can make that kind of work for you. And I think there comes the self-confidence with that. So I'm going to pop over to the chat and look at some of your questions.
I got a couple here. I can just kind of
shout go ahead.
Lots of great questions. Awesome. We've already got 50 questions in here, so we're not going to be able to get to all of these, but awesome questions. So, two is, do you draw any other types of people? For example, people in the community, and then how long did it take to paint your self-portrait?
So I do draw others. I don't necessarily choose people from the community specifically, but I do work with models who model and people I'm interested, say, in historical people or something like that. And my self-portraiture, that particular one that's up on the screen now, it was a couple days of multiple hour sittings. So it takes a lot longer than maybe you think, but I think that it's important to recognize that persistence will get you the result that you're looking for. You have to accept the fact that it's going to take a bit, but don't be afraid to do multiple sittings on a work so that it really finishes the way you want.
I'll just pull a couple questions out here. What was your early art like?
It was actually kind of similar. I think that the real difference was maybe the technical side wasn't quite as clean. It took, like I had said, it took me a while to decide to go to school for art, but I was practicing art. I was part of a collective here in New York City. I was selling art. So I was studying, I was making, but I was doing it in my own way before I decided to go to school. So it is very similar. Some of the palette is similar, but you can tell that my technical skill has improved.
And then one last question for you. Let me pull up here. What is your favorite piece of art that you have made?
Oh, wow. That's, actually this double self-portrait that's up here on the screen is probably one of my favorites. I have a couple others, but since it's up, I'll talk about it. You know, it's a very honest dive into a mental health space that I was in a couple years ago, where this dual self and trying to understand that aspect of me was like in the forefront of my mind. It was the uttermost dealing that I was going through in my life, and I think that this self-portrait really depicts that. So I think that that's a successful work for me. When I feel that viscerality, I'm like, yeah, that was a good one. And so I think that that's definitely up there for me.
Sorry, struggling for the
No
unmute
worries.
button there. Well, thank you so much, and lots more questions in the chat if you want to jump over there to answer those.
Sure.
But we've got about 10 minutes left, so I'm going to pass it over to Jen Kraft, who's our last artist who is going to be joining us, who's a concept artist and illustrator. So thank you. Welcome, Jen.
Thanks for having me. So yeah, as said, I am a concept artist and an illustrator. I went to PCAD for illustration, learned a little bit there, got my internship at Firaxis while I was there. So at the moment, I am both working at Firaxis as a visual effects artist and teaching at PCAD now, usually in the fall, and yeah, stuff like that. Let's see. I've pretty much been doing freelance for a very long time. I want to say maybe since I was in college, so maybe 2011. I graduated college in 2014, so I've been working at Firaxis since then. So it's almost, I think, 7 or 8 years. I'm really bad at math. But I still do freelance illustration and concept art on the side. Firaxis has allowed me to, while I was working as a quality assurance tester, so basically I was testing the games, I was also allowed to partially work on concept art and on icons and little bits here and there on the different games they were working on. I also designed a couple of the developer shirts, so that was fun. But oh yeah, so actually the Polis Palace right here is the first piece of concept art that I was allowed to do. And this was on Civilization 6, the Poland DLC. So it's actually a little tiny building in the game. So as you progress through the game, the buildings change with the eras. And so I was very proud of this. And then on the left here is a piece from, I did a span of drawings that were both creatures and environments that basically coincide in this big alien world that was in my head. I did about, I think, 10 of the creatures and 5 of the environments. Just had a great time with that. And actually, eventually that got put into a show at a concert hall here in Maryland. And so that was really fun. Um, yeah, I don't know where else to go with this.
I have a question, just because we have a lot of students that, definitely are like the idea of working in video games and animation, designing for video games. So I
Yeah.
guess, what would you say, how did you get into that field, and what would you recommend for our students who are interested in that as a pathway?
Ooh, so definitely go to college or find as many resources as you can online. There are a lot of resources online. College will absolutely help you because you're going to be in it with a lot of professionals who are in the industry that could directly help you how to get into this stuff. Animation is one of those that takes a long time to get really good at it. As long as you keep going, you're going to get better at it. Animators are always needed. In terms of video games, I got into video games, like I always played video games when I was younger, but it didn't really click in my head that someone actually has to like make art to do this. So once I figured that out, I was like, well, now I want to do that. So I'd start asking my teachers. At the time, PCAD didn't really have a lot of video game related art. They do now, which is amazing. So I just kind of learned a little bit there. There was a professor that was at Disney. So I got to learn how they did concept art there, and just kind of grew with that. And then once I got my internship at Firaxis, I kind of would just impede on the artists. I would go and be like, hey, what are you working on? My name is Jen. And they would just, they're so amazing at giving all of the resources that I ever wanted. People in the industry are very, very, they're very willing to help other people get into the industry. It is a very fun industry. It's very hard, but it's so rewarding. Yeah. Did that answer the question?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm
Cool.
gonna pull a couple of questions here. We've got lots of questions in the chat. So again, we're not gonna get to all
Awesome.
these, but thank you. How long did it take for you to make just that one castle?
Oh, this castle?
Yes.
Ooh. I want to say this was about, oh, I want to say maybe 3 or 4 days worth of work, because in games there's a lot of, here's the sketch. It actually starts as a little design blurb from the designers, like, we want a Polish palace here in whatever era. And so you take that and you start sketching it out, and then you bring it back to the designers and like, okay, which one of these are you really seeing working for these? And so they'll pick one of those, and then you go in and you do some more iterations of it, add some color, bring it back and be like, okay, how do you feel about this? And then they'll give you your feedback, whether, oh, change this, change that. The roof was changed at least 3 or 4 times, because of the nature of the game. Everything is very zoomed out, so we needed things that were very, you could see from far away. So that was a lot of back and forth. And so, yeah, I think over the course of 3 or 4 days, 8 hours each day, because it's a typical 9 to 5 job. So yeah, whatever 8 times 3 is, can't do math. But yeah, eventually it got to this point, and then someone took it from there and modeled it and put it in game.
Great. And what inspired you to make your creatures, like the one you have on the left and the ones on these previous pages here as well?
Yes. So all kinds of things inspire me to make these creatures. the one that I still don't know how to pronounce that name. That is from it's a mythological creature, so that had a lot of inspiration from other mythological creatures. And I find a lot of inspiration from definitely video games, because there are a lot of great creature designs in that. I love watching movies, so movies like Harry Potter and Avatar, and all of these have really great creature designs, and so I find a lot of inspiration from those. Also inspiration from real life. This wolf concept obviously is very inspired by real life animals. I spend a lot of time looking at animals and analyzing their anatomy and how that would work if I were to make something that doesn't exist. With these aliens, that's basically what I did too, was, okay, what are the cute aspects that I like of certain animals, and put these together and see what comes of it. And so, yeah, there's a lot of inspiration. Even music inspires me too. It's a harder thing to explain. When, how do you get this alien creature from music? It's anyone here who has done art kind of knows it's this burning feeling inside, and you kind of start to make these really cool images in your head, and it just starts playing out. Like, I envision how they would move, how they act, all that stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. I just want to make a note. There were a couple kind of more technical questions.
Yeah.
One was around kind of what is freelance. So freelance is, instead of, some people, they'll work for just one company. So your teacher works just at your school, but a freelance person is going to work for a lot of different companies or people kind of throughout. So it's not just one company, they're doing a little bit of everything. A grant was the other question. A grant is money that you get specifically to do that work. So to either run a program or create a mural or a piece of art. So that's kind of what that specific piece is. So one thing I just kind of took away from this is, you'll notice, everyone on this call, our panelists, all talked about, how they just did, required a lot of work and just a lot of practice to get really, really good at what they do. So, they were constantly drawing, sketching, painting from a young age, just constantly working at it, and then had the opportunity to pursue that art career by going to Pennsylvania College of Art and Design or Millersville to learn even more, and then able to enter into the career. So I want to say thank you to our panelists. Thank you to Pennsylvania College of Art and Design. I will be sending out a recording of this to your counselors and teachers, and along with the slides here, so you'll have a chance to look at those more later. But thank you everyone for joining, and have a great rest of your day. Take care.